A lot of students on this show from all over who have pretty remarkable ideas about how they ought to conduct themselves on campus. From vandals to socialists to segregationists, here are some of our favorite student guests from the past few months.
You need to be allowed to say what you think, and what you think doesn't have to be popular or constructive or polite for you to be allowed to say. You have an absolute right to express your views, period.
You're right.
Do they not teach?
Right.
Okay, and that would include whiteboards, no? I mean, it's kind of simple.
The idea of freedom of speech is essential to our country. That's literally what our country was founded on.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that you can disagree with somebody and have that conversation,
that's really good.
Student. But I will say, there's Tucker, let me finish here. There's a difference between you expressing a view and then you providing intimidation and harassment to another student.
So it seems to me if you're going to ban whiteboards, why stop there? Why not ban pens and keyboards and other instruments of divergent opinion and just kind of suppress speech and everyone would be happy? You're a pretty articulate person with a precise command of the language, and presumably in an article this long you could explain exactly what that action, what form it would take, and in this case you said it takes flipping cars over, and my point is someone paid for those cars. Like, those aren't your cars, and to destroy other people's property to make your political point isn't really a valid path, is it?
Well, first of all, they flipped cars when the Cubs won, but secondly, Tucker, I mean, so I think that yeah, it's an article, and I exaggerated, but I mean, I'm trying to explain now what I think I actually mean by political action that doesn't consist in sort of sanitized or moderated Q&A sessions or bipartisan roundtables at the Institute of Politics.
Can you name a single example where a speaker has been physically prevented from speaking by conservative students?
I know basically that Barack Obama and Alice Walker have been sort of denied, or at least attempted.
No, they were not stopped from speaking. Nobody put their bodyguards in the hospital. Nobody threw rocks against the building or pounded on the windows. Conservative students have not, that I'm aware of, and I would denounce it immediately if they did, stopped any speaker, and yet you see it on the left, and yet your piece doesn't say one word about that. I wonder why. I would defend the right of anybody to say something I disagree with, and you ought to too, and especially as a college student, and I think you're still a college student.
I'm a graduate student, and actually
You're a graduate student, you teach, then you're in a world that was created specifically to protect people who have non-mainstream opinions.
But that space does not protect everybody. Let's be clear about that.
Apparently it doesn't. It doesn't protect people you disagree with.
Does it protect people who advocate killing cops? Do you think that will go well? If someone wanted to go and speak on a college campus,
First of all,
a tour that said that talked
the time.
Really? I really want to know. I really want to know where does anybody.
Have you been to a Black Lives Matter protest?
Absolutely not. I support Black Lives Matter. I would never support Black Lives Matter if they advocated killing a police officer.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
Right? So if I were to go to a rally and people said, I'm just pulling this out of thin air, pigs in a blanket fry like bacon about police officers advocating the killing of cops, I mean, you would say that's unacceptable. That should not be allowed. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if student group wants to have a discussion about police brutality or racism.
If they were to use that phrase, pigs in a blanket fry like bacon.
I'm not interested in a phrase. I'm not going to debate you over this phrase should be allowed
because
or not.
you have no principles. That's why. Because all the things you've been saying for the last 11 minutes are totally untrue.
And I came here because I thought I would get the same respect from you.
You just revealed who you are. You're basically saying the flag represents evil to the extent that it shouldn't be flown. And my question is, why is it always rich kids who make that point? Why is it always kids from a $62,000 a year college like Hampshire who are making that point? None of the workers who you claim to be representing ever say that. You never see anybody at a trade school burning the American flag. Have you noticed that? I'm not making this up in my mind, am I?
I think that you're more likely to pick up a story in which rich kids do burn a flag on the basis that we have more access to the media. I mean, like, the flag burning wasn't
really. So you think it's like your average HVAC repair school, they're burning the flag?
Well, as you and me both know, the politics of this country are divided by class.
What if a bunch of, like, straight white kids got together and said, you know, we feel oppressed here by people perhaps like you, Sean, and we need our own student-sponsored, school-paid-for room to gather with just straight white guys, would you say, I get that, that's okay? Or would you not?
I think that given the data that we have around suicide and the pressing needs of our community and the limited space that we have, there are other ways in which that space can be used.
Oh, so no, in other words, so it's a double standard. So certain races get their own rooms and others don't.
No, what I'm saying is that we're reacting to needs and we're providing support for communities that have demonstrated those needs.
But what you're doing is using imprecise, silly academic talk to dodge my question. So
not at all.
Let me ask you one more time.
I can't think of anything more real than suicide, Tucker.
Well, I'm not denying the reality of suicide.
Well, I know. You said I was using academic talk. I'm not doing that at all.
No, I'm contesting your assumption about what causes suicide.
No, you don't think that isolationism causes suicide?
I don't know what isolationism is. It's actually a foreign policy term here in Washington. I guess it means nothing around people who
when I say
like
isolation, yeah, I mean feeling, cutting yourself off, not feeling like you have a community. And there are differences among these communities.
Let's get deeper here. So you're saying that people are more comfortable, maybe have better mental health when they're around people who are just like them. And I'm saying maybe that's true, but it's kind of a radical thing to say, because that, of course, again, was what the people who supported segregation said. There is massive unemployment in the middle of the country, massive, and a higher rate for men than during the Great Depression. If you bring in more workers, will there be more or less employment? There will be less employment, more people competing for fewer jobs. This is basic economics. How can you as a socialist be for that?
What we need is jobs programs, and the reality is that appointing a CEO. The reality is that appointing a CEO of Goldman Sachs as our finance advisor, somebody who rejects the concept of a minimum wage.
Look, I'm taking you seriously, and you're just repeating dumb liberal talking points. Be a socialist. Be a radical. Open your mind. I'm serious. You're not a socialist. You're a lifestyle liberal who's upset about the same boring rich people topics. Look at the economics of it.
Well, Secretary of Education